Okay, I need you to stay with me for this one, because what I'm about to tell you sounds unbelievable, but it actually explains a lot about what's really going on behind the scenes. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So yesterday, we talked about how Joseph Duggar is not the only one. And before we get into this, real quick, if you're into this kind of content, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because honestly, the deeper you go into this, the more it starts to feel like a pattern, not just a coincidence. Because let's not forget, Jackson Duggar was caught sending unsolicited texts to a girl. And then there's James Duggar, who at 21 was pursuing someone younger. But this actually started years earlier, when she was around 14 and he was still in his late teens. Now, pause for a second, because this is where things start getting a little uncomfortable. There's always been this very polished image, right? The Duggar boys are presented as pure, disciplined, basically perfect. But in reality, a lot of them had already crossed those same boundaries before marriage. And yet, on camera, they were all expected to say the same thing. Our first kiss was at the altar. Yeah, that storyline? Not exactly accurate. Even Jana Duggar didn't fully match that narrative. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about truth. It was about maintaining an image. And that image was built around purity culture. Now here's where things get even more interesting. There's a pattern in the type of girls these guys go for. Not just religious or traditional, but very sheltered, very inexperienced, and in many cases, already fans of the family. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. Some of these girls genuinely felt like they had hit the jackpot just by being noticed. Like, imagine competing for attention like it's a reality show, except no one admits it's a competition. Some ignored obvious red flags, and others, they didn't even know what a red flag was. And that brings us to Kendra Duggar. Now, this information actually came from someone who used to be close to that circle. Not anymore, but close enough to know what really goes on. And according to them, this isn't just about Josh Duggar. It's a pattern across multiple sons. A repeated behavior where boundaries aren't respected, where entitlement is normalized, and where interactions with women are, honestly, concerning. And yes, some are more obvious than others. Apparently, Joseph Duggar is more subtle, while Justin Duggar and James Duggar show it in different ways. At this point, it stops feeling like coincidence. Now, let's talk about Kendra, because her background is important. She didn't just grow up sheltered, she grew up extremely sheltered. No TV, barely any social media, very limited exposure to the outside world. If you think the Duggars were strict, her family was on another level. So when she met Joseph, it wasn't because she followed the show. He literally showed up at her church with Austin Forsyth. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Church turned into a matchmaking zone. No apps, no texting phase, just straight to, hello, let's get to know each other. That's how the Caldwell family got introduced into all of this.
They weren't chasing fame. They didn't even watch the show. If anything, the attention came to them, not the other way around. And here's something people don't mention enough. They didn't even make money from it. In fact, Paul Caldwell officiated weddings on the show and never accepted payment because he didn't believe the show was ethical. He thought it was exploitative. Now back to Kendra, because this is where things take a serious turn. She went into this with almost no understanding of relationships or intimacy or what marriage really involves. And at the same time, Joseph Duggar was actively pursuing her, alongside Jed Duggar. And somehow, Joseph came out ahead. Not necessarily because he was better, but because he was smoother, more controlled.
Better at hiding certain traits. Think of it like this. Jed is the loud version. Joseph is the quiet version. Same energy, different delivery. And sometimes the quiet version is harder to read. Now here's another detail. Joseph had already been involved with Carlin Bates, and there were already concerns about boundaries in that situation. But Kendra? She didn't fully understand any of that because she didn't have the experience to process it. When it came to intimacy, she knew almost nothing. She actually had to be sat down and told what it was right before getting married. And she cried. Think about that for a second.
No preparation, no context, no understanding. Just suddenly stepping into something life-changing. And then, right before the honeymoon, she's given a list. Not a simple checklist, a detailed, step-by-step guide from her in-laws, explaining exactly what should happen, how it should happen, and when. And that's where things go from uncomfortable to deeply concerning. Because instead of natural connection, everything becomes structured, controlled, almost mechanical. And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it starts to explain a lot. Because when you remove understanding, communication, and personal awareness, and replace it with strict rules, you don't build healthy relationships. You create confusion. And sometimes, something much worse. So yeah, this isn't just one story. It's a pattern. And once you see it, you really can't unsee it. But I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.